After Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told, "David is in the desert of En-gedi." So Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel and set out to look for him and his men near the crags of the wild goats. He came to the sheep pens along the way. A cave was there, and Saul went in to relieve himself, not really to lie down as the picture told. It's the general relieving himself. David and his men were far back in the cave. The men said, "This is the very day the Lord spoke of when he said to you, 'I will give you your enemy into your hands for you to deal with as you wish.'" Then David crept up unnoticed and cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Afterwards, David was conscience-stricken for having cut off a corner of his robe. He said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lift my hand against him, for he is the anointed of the Lord." With these words, David rebuked his men and didn't allow them to attack Saul. Saul left the cave and went his way. And David went out of the cave and called out to Saul, "My lord the king." When Saul looked behind him, David bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. He said to Saul, "Why do you listen to when your men say David is bent on harming you? This day you have seen with your own eyes how the Lord gave you into my hands in the cave. Some urged me to kill you, but I spared you." Where am I? This day you've seen. Some urged me to kill you, but I spared you, I said. "I will not lift my hand against my master, because he is the Lord's anointed. See, my father, look at this piece of your robe in my hand. I cut the corner off your robe, but did not kill you. Now understand and recognize that I'm not guilty of wrongdoing or rebellion. I have not wronged you, but you are hunting me down to take my life. May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord avenge the wrongs you have done to me. But my hand will not touch you. As the old saying goes, from evildoers come evil deeds. So my hand will not touch you. Against whom has the King of Israel come out, whom you are pursuing? A dead dog, a flea? May the Lord be our judge and decide between us. May he consider my cause and uphold it. He may vindicate me by delivering me from your hand." When David finished saying this, Saul asked, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" And he wept aloud. "You are more righteous than I," he said. "You have treated me well, but I have treated you badly. You have just now told me of the good you did to me. The Lord gave me into your hands, but you didn't kill me. When a man finds his enemy, does he let him get away unharmed? May the Lord reward you well for the way you treated me today. I know that you will surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hands. Now swear to me by the Lord you will not cut off my descendants or wipe out my name from my father's family." So David gave his oath to Saul. Then Saul returned home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. Thanks be to Lord for his word.
Well, you've heard the story two times now, haven't you? So we could go home. No, it's interesting because when I looked at this, I've gone off on a completely different tangent. So there you go. It works, doesn't it? So how do you cope when somebody hates or even doesn't like you? How will you respond? So David responded in one way, but what would you do? After he killed Goliath, when he was about 15 when that happened, we find he was invited to live in the palace of King Saul. And last week we found out that Jonathan and David became good friends. Now, you know, Jonathan is about 25 years older than David. We see the pictures and they look like two boys, but it's more like an uncle-nephew situation. Like Jonathan would be like a mentor to David in the royal household. And David ends up living in the palace for about 7 years before they have this argy-bargy. 1 Samuel 18 reveals King Saul's jealousy of young David. It describes how Saul was envious of David's military prowess and exploits. You saw that, didn't you? In the children's one, that was really clear, wasn't it? And everyone was cheering David, and of course Saul got really jealous. Because Saul put him in charge of a battle. He thought, I'll fix him. I'll put him in charge of this battle. He's sure to lose. He's only a young guy. But his plan backfired. David not only emerged victorious, he was given Michal, who was or Michelle, I don't know how you pronounce it in Hebrew. It was his daughter anyway, King's daughter, became David's wife. And this, because he had to do that, it made him super angry. And verse 29 in 1 Samuel 18 says, he became David's enemy continually. He didn't stop, his guts, he hated him. Now the next chapter describes a really bad night, or like Mari's had a bad night last night. This is what happened to David. I'll read it to you. Saul sent men to David's house to stake it out, and then, first thing in the morning, to kill him. But Michal, David's wife, told him what was going on. Quickly now, make your escape tonight. If not, you'll be dead by morning. She let him out of a window and he made his escape. And this is the funny part. Then Michal took a dummy god and put it in the bed, placed a wig of goat's hair on his head and threw a quilt over it. When Saul's men arrived to get David, she said, "Oh, sorry, he's sick in bed." They took that on board and went back and told Saul, and Saul gets really super angry. "I don't care. Bring the whole bed with David in it to me, and so I can kill him." But of course, he wasn't there. It sounds a bit like a movie, doesn't it? Anyway, you know, it's really dangerous to be angry like that. Did you know it's dangerous to be angry? Besides what it does to your guts and to how you are, I'll read you a story about the danger of anger. Steve Tran of Westminster, California, wanted to kill the cockroaches in his apartment once and for all. He hated them. So he activated 25 bug bombs, even though the label said 2 will do the trick, and closed the door. The fumes reached the pilot light of his stove and created an explosion that sent his screen door across the street, broke all his windows and caused $10,000 worth of damage. Steve said, "I just really wanted to kill all of them. I thought if I used a lot more, it would last longer." Oh, and by the way, a week later, Steve saw the cockroaches back again. Sorry?
They're unkillable.
Yeah, they are. Anyway, David escaped the threat and he left the palace and he went off to find sanctuary with Samuel the prophet. And you know, Saul hated David so much, when he found out where he'd gone, he sent men there and killed all the prophets that were there, 80 prophets, just to get back at David. Eventually, he goes to hide in a cave at Adullam. And while there, this is interesting, about 400 men join him. His brothers and his father's household hear about it, and they join him also. The 400 men who joined him were men who were disenchanted with Saul and the things he was doing. They were in distress, in debt, they were outcasts and on the fringes of society, and he became captain over them all. Does it remind you of someone? It reminded me of Robin Hood. I thought it was just like Robin Hood, wasn't it? The people who were disenchanted with the powers to be, who was it, Prince John? All went out into the forest, and all these men came and started to follow David. So he has all these people start to follow him and surround him. He's in this big, it's a humongous cave, I saw a picture of it, 400 men and him in the cave. And this is where Psalm 142 comes from. Now you listen to this. He said, I cry out loudly to God. Loudly I plead with God for mercy. I spill out all my complaints before him and spell out all my troubles in detail. As I sink in despair, my spirit ebbing away, you know how I'm feeling. You know the danger I'm in, the traps hidden in my path. I look to the left and to the right. There's not a soul who cares what happens. I'm up against the wall with no exit. It's just me, all alone. I cry out, God, call out, you're my last chance, my only hope for life. Oh, listen, please listen. I've never been this low. Rescue me from those who are hunting me down. I'm no match for them. Get me out of this dungeon so I can thank you in public. Your people will form a circle around me and you'll bring me showers of blessing. In the midst of 400 men, he wrote those words. It's interesting, isn't it? That even though it was a sanctuary and he had all those men around him supporting him, he felt alone. Even though he was safe, he felt abandoned and betrayed. Have you ever felt like that? In the middle of a whole lot of people around you, family, friends, and you feel so alone and abandoned? God knows, doesn't he? I've got a story here and it's pretty awful. I reckon it is anyway. It's about being abandoned. During World War II, 6 Navy pilots left their aircraft carrier on a mission. After searching the seas for enemy submarines, they tried to return to their ship shortly before dark, or after dark actually, but the captain had ordered a blackout of all the lights on the ship. Over and over, the frantic pilots radioed, asking for just one light so that they could see where to land. Can you imagine in the middle of the ocean? But the pilots were told that the blackout could not be lifted. After several appeals and denials of their request, the ship's operator turned the switch to break radio contact, left them in the lurch, and the pilots were forced to ditch in the ocean. Imagine how they felt. Imagine that. I reckon that's the ultimate picture of abandonment, isn't it? They went on a mission for their country. They did what they were told, and then it was like, well, bad luck. And they didn't care if they died or lived. The captain, they were abandoned. And this is how David felt, abandoned. God had anointed him to be the next king, but you know what? He spent the next 13 years as an outlaw being hunted by Saul, who offered rewards for his capture. And he escaped by the skin of his teeth many times. He found safety in caves, in forests and foreign cities. When you see the little DVD or you read it, you don't realise that it's years. He's an outlaw for years, not just a little while. Have you ever escaped to a cave? Many of us feel, withdraw from people or withdraw from society when we feel unable to cope or things are getting us down. It's like drawing into a cave, isn't it? I spoke to a man in Yarra Junction on Thursday who told me about his depression. He's one of our regular customers who comes into the shop, and he's never really talked to me like this before, and he must have been really low. And he told me about his extreme loneliness and how when he feels down, he said, I can't even lift my head to look at people that I pass in the street. His pain was extreme, and I felt really sad for him. His only friend was a dog. So when you get like that, it's like withdrawing, isn't it, into a cave. This is how we cope. We withdraw from things that have happened to us, from trauma, from sickness, from poverty, from betrayal, from abuse, from bereavement. You sort of go into yourself, don't you, or into your cave. We withdraw to feel safe. We set up barriers and masks to protect ourselves. We hide from the world. We hide from the bad circumstances and bad memories that threaten to overwhelm us. A cave or our home becomes a place of solace, healing, safety. But you know what? You can't stay in there too long, or it will become your prison. However, you know what? The cave that David and his friends hid in also reminds me that the church can also be like a cave where you can come, and a place of healing and safety and sanctuary to people. The people who flocked to the cave to join David because they knew he was going to be the future king are like people in our community, like that man that I spoke to on Thursday. The sort of people that Jesus came to seek and find and draw to himself. People who were struggling, who were alone and dissatisfied with their lot in life. They are people for looking more. They want more in life. They want acceptance and they want love. They feel lonely, and those men came looking for a saviour in David at that time. David was like a picture of Jesus, and people come to the church looking for Jesus. And you know what our responsibility is? It's to welcome them and point them to Jesus. David could have stooped to hate and
revenge. He was given at least 2 opportunities to kill Saul easily, like the one we saw in the DVD, or we read in our reading, and where Saul came and was hiding, and he could have easily killed him. And none of the men, I don't reckon, would have blamed him. But God left it up to him. He said, do what you feel is right. On another occasion, God called, when the soldiers and Saul were chasing him and they made camp that night, God set a really deep sleep on the whole camp. And David was able to sneak in, steal Saul's water bottle and spear, again showing Saul later, look, I could have killed you again, but I didn't. He demonstrated his benevolence towards Saul. So David had to wait for many years before he was able to become king. He wasn't able to become king until Saul was killed in a battle. Saul, Jonathan, and Jonathan's 2 other brothers were killed when Saul was 72 years old. Jonathan was 57. And this had to happen before David could reign. So besides being brave, he was very patient, wasn't he? Because it took so many years. They were years when God trained David. He had people following him. He was, learned to be a warrior. He learned to look after people. He learned to be a king under adversity.
looking at the Psalms, we can see how he felt, like that psalm we read. He was angry, but he didn't seek revenge. It was obvious that he turned to God and spoke with God constantly. He told God how he felt. He poured out his anger and yet constantly recognised that God was in charge and trusted God. That's what we have to do. You can tell God you're angry about where you're at and what's happened to you. You've got every right to tell God, and he doesn't mind. He wants you to come and tell him. David seesawed between anger, despair, confidence in his God. He sounds very human, doesn't he? You know, I read that David's life, it was like someone got hold of his diary and read his diary, and this writer said, wouldn't it be awful if our lives were spread out the way David's lives was for everyone to read? So we read about David's highs and his lows. We're going to find out he wasn't a saint by any means. He was very human, just like we are. So how can we cope? We too need to turn to God, just like David did. We can confidently leave revenge to God. Remember that hatred is like an acid. When you put acid in a bottle, eventually it'll eat up the bottle as well as the things you pour. And hatred is like that. If you let hatred live in your heart, in your life, it will eat you away. There's a story of a woman who was bitten by a mad dog. It looked as though she was going to die of rabies. So the doctor told her she should make her will. Taking her pen and paper, she began to write. In fact, she wrote and wrote and wrote. And finally the doctor said, "That's surely a very long will you're making." "Huh, will nothing. I'm making a list of all the people I'm going to bite." Revenge. And you know what? You and I, we've got things in our past that have hurt us, and you can never forget what has happened to you. But instead of looking back, look forward to what God is doing now. And you know what? When those memories of the bad things come back to you, give it to God. And it might have to be many, many times during the day when that bad memory comes back to you about what's happened. "Oh Lord, I'm sorry, I give it to you." And you know that God will take it. And eventually the pain will come less and less, because only God can truly heal you and guide your thoughts and your eyes away from the hurt. You know what? Jesus was hurt. He did nothing wrong. He was betrayed by his friends. He was traumatized and abused undeservedly. He begged God to make another way, which didn't come. And I can't imagine what Jesus went through as he took on the world's sin and looked at all the evil that people are capable of, and yet he was still able to say, "God, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." You know, during the week, it's school holidays, so you're allowed to go to the movies and you're allowed to take the grandchildren. And we had a lovely time. On Tuesday we went to the movies to see How to Train Your Dragon. Has anyone else seen it? Oh, come on, you've got to go. Yeah, Ray, this is always our excuse to see the good movies. Oh, we have to take the grandkids, you know. And it's a great movie. It's about Vikings who lived in an outpost of Iceland. And they've gathered there to find and destroy a nest of dragons who they hate. You should see them, fire-breathing, big things, whoa, big teeth. And they believe the dragons hate them, as they're always attacking the settlement, killing the people, picking up sheep and flying off with them. That's fantastic. And they train to kill these dragons. That's their one purpose in life. However, the Viking king's son isn't like the other Vikings. He's still got 2 legs and 2 arms, and he doesn't have muscles, and he doesn't wear a big shaggy coat or wear the horns. But he's really smart, and one day he tracks down the Night Fury. It's a black one that no one's ever seen, a black dragon. And he throws a net over it, and in doing so, he injures it. And you know what he finds out? The dragons are as scared of people as the Vikings are of the dragons. And he shows love and kindness to the dragon, and they become great friends. And you know what? I'm not telling you what happens next. You have to go and watch this movie. But I just point out to you that hate, anger, and vengeance is not the way to change a situation or to make friends or to move on. And that movie is a perfect picture of it, and it's very exciting. You know what? You need to own the situation. You have to recognise you're not going to get on with everybody, Ray. Not everyone's going to like you, because people all are different. We're not perfect, and yet we expect other people to be perfect, don't we? Why don't they like me? And you know what? You can't control how others act or think, but you have to remember we're all different, and that's okay. We have to own our response to others. If people get up your nose and annoy you, how you respond isn't their fault, is it? Whose fault is it? It's only your own. If you get cross, Ray, or get sad, it's only your fault. You can't blame other people for how you respond. You're in charge of your own feelings and your own responses. You have to, like with the dragons, try to understand how the other person is feeling, how the other dragons were feeling, and acknowledge that their responses are based, the people who don't like you, their responses to you are based on their own experiences, which are different to yours. Ray, I hope you're taking this on. And you know what? You have to talk to each other. There doesn't have to be a right or a wrong. Maybe we just have to accept that we're all different. You know, when I first became a Christian, I was in high school, right? And when I look back at it now, I think, oh my goodness, I'm very embarrassed. But my friend and I, we were we felt like we were the only 2 Christians in the whole school. I went to Broadmeadows High School, so you can understand that. And we used to sit there in the playground at lunchtime reading our Bible. We were sort of thinking, oh, well, we'll show them we're Christians, you know. Isn't that embarrassing? Anyway, of course, we attracted abuse. And girls came around, what are you doing, you silly things, you know, and people would chuck stuff at us, and that we would be like martyrs. We would think, oh, you know what it's like when you're a young Christian and you don't know what you're doing. Anyway, there was this girl that used to pick on me all the time. Anyway, I had a bike. I used to have to ride to school on my bike. And I don't know why, but one night I was a bit later at school, and this girl who picked on me all the time was there struggling with her bike. Her bike chain had come off her bike and she couldn't get home. She didn't know what to do. She was pretty upset. And guess what? My bike chain used to come off all the time, so I knew exactly what to do. So I went up and helped her, and we did the, you put the thing around one and twist it, and up came the chain. And she was so grateful, and off she went. It's like it says in the Bible, if people hate you, pour coals of hot fire on their head. And that was what I thought I did. You know what? She never said a nasty word to me ever again. So that's the way. When people don't like you, show them kindness, be kind, and do kind things for them. But anyway, to get back to our cave, I'm not saying it's easy to come out of your cave. It hurts, doesn't it, to come out of your cave when you've been hiding away and you're depressed. It hurts to become vulnerable once more, to lower your shield and to learn to trust and open your heart. People will let you down. They will make you angry and maybe even betray you, because we're all only human and we're weak. So the only way, or the only one you can really depend on, is Jesus. He has suffered it all as well, and he understands how you feel, and he can give you hope and strength. So don't give up. Got one more illustration. 2 hunters came across a bear so big that they dropped their rifles and ran for cover. One man climbed a tree while the other hid in a nearby cave. The bear was in no hurry to eat, so he sat down between the tree and the cave to reflect upon his good fortune. Suddenly, and for no apparent reason, the hunter in the cave came rushing out, almost ran into the waiting bear, hesitated, and then dashed back in again. The same thing happened a second time. And when he emerged for the third time, his companion in the tree frantically called out, "Woody, are you crazy? Stay in the cave till he leaves." "He can't," panted Woody. "There's another bear in there." It can be just as dangerous to stay in the cave as it is to come out. So let's just close in prayer. Let's pray. Jesus, most of us feel sad, depressed and let down by our friends at times. We call out to you with our hurts, knowing that you understand. As you responded to David, whom you loved, I know that we can be sure that you will respond to us, who you love too. Give us the strength to come out of our caves and to join together with other broken people. Help us to reach out to each other in love and support, in understanding and forgiveness. Heal us, I pray.